Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Mireille, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about aging with attitude. Join us as we talk about life expectancy and how to live healthy throughout the last half of your life. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're talking about life expectancy and ways to live a long time while staying healthy. This episode is inspired by the book we're reading, French Women Don't Get Facelifts by Mireille Guiliano. Each month we're doing 1 or 2 chapters from the book. And as with all our book episodes, you don't need to be reading the book to enjoy this episode. So join us as we explore how to be comfortable in your own skin, seeing ourselves as we really are, and developing a plan for aging. Julie and Mindy, this thing about life expectancy, I mean, it's kind of morbid. I don't know. It's kind of uncomfortable when I start reading it, but I do know that it's necessary to think about and talk about, and she does it in a good way. But how did you feel when you had to start reading about it?
I'll say I just came off of a cruise, and in our group of 7 women, one of us was 93.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Telling different, yes, truly amazing. And I don't know why, but the Lord has brought a lot of 92 and 93-year-olds into my life recently. And I really noticed this because this has been a season of my grandfather receiving hospice at home, and he's 92. And so in her sentence, when she's the same age, often do not appear to be the same age. And so I was thinking about that, like the different stages of these 92, 93-year-olds. And just depending on what's going on in their lives, some are out there on a cruise ship and some are, dealing with failing health and end of life, if they're blessed to even be 92 and 93. Mm-hmm. So, this whole kind of life expectancy and things like that, it was a really interesting chapter. And so I'm definitely interested to talk more about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've obviously thought more about death recently than I ever have. John passing away way too young. And then I have my mom who's 88 and she's doing pretty well. And, her parents lived into their 80s and one other grandmother lived into her 80s and was very active. She was on cruises right until the end.
Uh-huh.
And living that long used to seem kind of scary. But now it's like, well, the alternative isn't good.
Mm-hmm.
like you do want to live long, but you want it to be healthy. You want to live well.
Right.
That kind of transitions us into the first question that she asks in this chapter. We're looking at chapter 11, life expectancy. She asks, the first sentence is, do you want to live to be 100? And I immediately feel like, yes, I do want to live to be 100 if I'm mentally with it and relatively healthy.
That question years ago, I would have thought, oh no, because it just seemed like no one lived to be 100. And I thought it's kind of sad when you see old people outliving all of their peers and their friends, like they have no one, because they're just so old. But I think as more and more people live to that, sure, I want to be in that club.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, yeah. I appreciated that she used the words, sometimes we don't necessarily want to live longer. We just want to live well. And that's how I feel. I want to live until I die. Like no matter what stage, and I don't know what the Lord will allow in my life, but through some past seasons, I remember praying like, Lord, I think I would really struggle with living sick. But sometimes that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what will happen there. But I remember, so another part of our group, my friend's mom on the cruise ship, she randomly said, people are always talking about living to be 100. She said, I don't want to live to be 100. That sounds awful. I want 75. I want to go at 75. And I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
But I mean, she's thinking about it and it came up in normal conversation.
Well, my mom is going to be 75 in November, and I definitely want her to live longer than 75.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And as you get closer to 75, maybe that person would change their mind. I don't know.
Right.
All right. Well, Julie, you kind of brought up reunions, and I have never gone back for any class reunions, but I think what they're getting at behind this is what you said earlier, Mindy, is that people of the same age can look very different. Like, you can be 45 and look young. You can be 45 and look 50. Like, there's a wide range of how people age. And so, Julie, you have some experience with reunions, so why don't you share?
Well, I just had my 40th class reunion last weekend and I did not go, but I've been following the Facebook group and seeing all the fun they're having and pictures and stuff. And, in my mind, I pictured everyone like I remember them in high school. And when these pictures started coming in, I was like, who are all these old people? Like I didn't recognize I recognized very few people.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes I would zoom in to try to see their name tag because I just couldn't tell who they were. But, if it was someone that I had kept up with, of course, I recognize them because in my mind, I guess there was that connection. But yeah, some people really aged well and others not so well. I remember there was this one picture, the football coach came. So maybe he was super young when he was our football coach, but he was in a group picture with some people. And I thought, wow, they all kind of look the same age, like all the guys. And it was funny that, he has to be much older to be our coach, but
sure,
they kind of all evened out. Everybody was gray, a little heavier, maybe balding.
Right.
Well, that's true. At least to people that are younger, sometimes it's hard to really tell the difference between a 75-year-old and an 82-year-old or an 85-year-old. Like, if they all are dressed with the same style of clothing and relatively same style of hair, right. It's not like a drastic difference probably for some people. So yeah, I could see how the football coach could look like the students at that age. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Have you ever gone to a reunion, Mindy?
I have not gone to a reunion. Ironically, so Bryce and I both graduated from the same high school in Missouri, and it was a military community. And so it was not unheard of for most of the people to move away from the area, because you're there, because your dad's stationed there, your mom's stationed there. And so not a lot of people were necessarily from there. And so our classes end up doing these online kind of get-togethers.
Oh,
so there's a Facebook page. So I feel like all of my reunion or whatever is online. Also, my memory is not that great with who I went to high school with because I went to 4 different high schools. And so I honestly can't remember where I knew people from.
Right.
I've just written that, like, okay, yeah, I graduated from high school.
Right.
I met Bryce and that was the most important part of it.
Yeah, I can see
that. But I think that also, the same goes for as we get older, when we look at younger people, they all blend together.
True.
I see someone driving and I think they're 12, and I'm like, how's that little kid driving that big old truck,
I know.
And so that's humbling. You kind of just hope that maybe people think you're younger. And she even said that, it's definitely enjoyable when people think you're younger than you are.
Right.
And so I hope to stay in that. Oh, I had no idea you had kids that old,
Right.
True about being able to determine somebody's age. Because when I try to tell somebody, like, oh, I think they were, I don't know if they were 25 or 40. Like that could all look very similar. All those ages could look very similar.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there's mental age, physical appearance, and the state of our insides. And so we can do stuff about our physical appearance, and we can do things about the state of our insides. So there's so many different things that they can do now: joint replacements, eye lenses, dental implants, hearing aids, stem cell implants. What do you guys have experience with in this area?
I don't really have, other than a dental implant, I don't really have any experience personally, except I do know a lot of people. Like, I have 2 friends that just got the lens implants for cataracts.
Oh.
And they're the light adjusting. So
wow,
somehow it still allows your lens to focus like it does naturally. So they don't have to wear glasses anymore, not even reading glasses.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, are these like fake lenses or transplant lenses?
They're artificial lenses.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So like the ones that insurance pays for are either monofocal or multifocal lenses. And these are, I think they're called accommodating lenses. So they're about 3,000 or 4,000 an eye right now. So I think I don't have cataracts, so I don't need that yet, but I'm kind of excited for when I do, because I feel like everybody's going to get cataracts, and then I can get rid of my glasses.
I'm excited when I get cataracts too, Julie. Hey, we have to have things we're looking forward to.
And then, my mom has a new hip and got friends with knees and ankles and shoulders and dental implants. And I know one friend, her mom has some pretty bad hearing loss, and her hearing aids, they work with their cell phones. Mm-hmm. So, they can still talk on the phone. And that's just amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. Those joint replacement surgeries are really life-giving for the people that have them. And my father had an incident in the Army when he was going through airborne school, and his parachute didn't open right away. And then the second one opened too late. He broke both legs and was in the hospital, and he was young. He was like 18. So he was told he would never walk again, and they were going to discharge him from the Army at that point. Dad, I hope I'm telling this right, because I know you're going to listen. And so through that process, though, the reason I know this story is his recovery in the hospital. When they told him they were going to discharge him, that was going to be his life. And he said, please, let me try to be able to pass my first PT test. After I recover, go through physical therapy, things like that. So, of course, he had a double knee replacement at that time. That was his first. He was that young.
Wow.
And he met my mom in the hospital during his recovery process. So good from that. But he was able to actually stay in the Army, successful career as an Army officer, and ended up retiring just not that long ago. He even did civil service for 20 years.
Wow.
And so it really did give him life. He did have to get a knee replacement surgery. They only last so long. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of due for another one, but he's doing so well that he hasn't gone in yet. But I think he had his second one when Abby was born.
Oh, wow.
So it's just given him life.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing that he did so well with it that long ago, because think of all the advancements they've made in that surgery.
Yes, different materials that they use and things like that. And so I only know my dad as being very strong and capable, and he even went on to do French commando training, and he did elite training throughout his career. It's just very much a man's man, and on these borrowed knees,
Wow. Yeah. I have a friend who had a hip replacement, and he just walked out of the hospital the same day. It wasn't even an overnight stay. I just can't even imagine that. Because when my mom had her hip, it was a long recovery because she had broken it. But this was a replacement without a break. That makes a difference. Still, I just can't even imagine being able to stand on that and walk.
Yeah. That's amazing.
We have another mutual friend who, I think it was about 8 years ago, she got a heart valve replacement, and she chose an animal valve, so it will need to be replaced in the future. But her doctor told her then, then it was open heart surgery. And he said, but by the time you need this replaced again, it'll probably be done through a scope. Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. Well, I think she makes an interesting distinction in the book where she starts to have you kind of think about chronological age versus life expectancy and the number of years left. And one of the interesting things was that when they say that people on average have 75 years, that's including birth and the first part of your life. But she said if you are an adult, your life expectancy is even longer, because a lot of the risk is more in the infant and toddler preschool years. And if you survive that and made it to adulthood, your expectancy is even longer. And she kind of had, different ways, if you're healthy and able to do this or that at this point, then how many more years you can expect. And I thought that all was very interesting. Mm-hmm. Have you made the mental shift of thinking about I'm 50, but actually I maybe only have 25 or 30 years left? I do sometimes think like that. I don't like to, because it feels a little bit depressing, but I don't know how you can avoid it,
Yeah, it's kind of like when those people do the marble jar of how many Saturdays they have left with their kids in high school.
Oh my gosh.
I never could do that. I thought, who wants to
torture?
put such a finite date
Right.
on it, like an end of something. But like you said, you can't help but think about it. I mean, like I started really thinking about it probably for the first time, really, when John died, because I think about how many years I have left without him. Like it could be as many as we were married, and that was the depressing thought to me.
My.
Because and when I've done things for insurance and planning out financially, like how long you want your money to last, they always give me till 96. Like that's just the number they give healthy women,
Okay.
And I think, 96.
Right.
That's a long time. But so I have started thinking about that more and more.
I can remember when my dad retired at 65, and at his retirement party, my sister and I were talking to him, and we said, "Oh, Dad, are you excited?" He goes, "I don't know. I mean, what do I have? Maybe 10 good years left." And I remember I was so depressed by that comment. And now here it is coming up on 10 years for him, and he's still got a lot of good years left. But I think sometimes we can cut ourselves short maybe on the life expectancy scale too.
Yeah. I'd say Bryce and I are more financial planning for when he can retire. And he loves what he does, and he really never wants to fully retire. So like financially, we want him to be able to have that freedom. But also I think, so he and I are still in our 40s. We are still looking at becoming empty nesters. I don't think our minds have completely gotten to the point of life expectancy. I think we're more estate planning, financial planning. What kind of second act do we want to have after our youngest leaves the house? Do we want to buy land? Do we want to build some sort of family land situation? I mean, we are having those conversations. So I feel like we're still almost ramping up, even as we see our life, changing, and realizing that how many years we'll have our children as adults versus in our home. Like that's kind of baffling to us, because you feel like 18 years, they're in your home, and it's like all of a sudden you're going to have so many more years with your kids as friends than in your home parenting them. And that's actually really comforting. I mean, now, our adult kids are pretty like the coolest people we know. So I like that thought.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about retirement age and how people view that differently as we live longer, because like my grandfather retired at 55 from GM, and then he still lived another 30 years. And so that was even for his generation. But really, when you look around, I didn't realize that at the time that only happens usually with really good union jobs or public sector jobs. If you're working in the private sector, you're probably not retiring at 55 because you still have to have some health insurance.
People used to live not quite as long past retirement age in the past. And so I know it's a lot of times people retire and then they get sick immediately or something happens, unexpected. But now to think I could live 30 more years in a retired state, that's just, I don't know. Like she even says in the book, a lot of people say, I don't want to be retired that long, or I don't know if I can afford to be ritired that long. And I just don't think, it just never appealed to me to just kind of play out your life at the end. Like I feel like I wouldn't feel like I have a purpose. And that's kind of where I am right now. Like I don't want to just play the next 30 years,
Yes.
Got to have more of a purpose than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that employment, but it doesn't have to be a job, but something.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard you say, Mindy, that Bryce wants to work forever. And I would say that probably the men that I know really can't imagine just playing out the rest of their years. Like, I think my dad was really lost when he retired, even at 65. He was like, oh my goodness, like, what is my purpose here?
Yeah. John always said, oh, I want to work till I'm 70. And I thought, really? Why? And I think that was just who he was,
I mean, I really appreciate those thoughts about men aging. And I feel like I've noticed the exact same thing. My dad was career Army and then had 20 years civil service with the Army. And then when he got out officially, it was really difficult for him to transition. And he had to find and create his own meaningful work. And he's such a servant-hearted person that he fills his days now with helping people with things. I mean, that's literally what he does all the time. And that brings him purpose. He even has a work day. I'm in air quotes, I'm putting work day on Mondays that he's at their church helping and runs the senior adults and does that entire ministry. And he does it all for free because that's something that he feels passionate about and it gives him purpose. I would say because Bryce's job right now is not stressful, he could see having, if he had a job situation like this, you know, when he's 65, he would just keep in it. I mean,
yeah,
he's like, I would have no reason to stop working if the stress level was good. I had a good income. I still felt that I was able to make other people's lives better. And I think that's the key to it is we want that meaningful work. And I really think that means, you know, how can we contribute to society and make other people's lives better? So I can't see him ever officially like retiring from that ideology, whether that be a paid position or not.
Yeah. I remember my dad, he worked for the same company for 33 years and planned to retire with them. And he was downsized at 65. And I remember they were just very upset and just thought, how can this be? This isn't what we planned. And my dad just made the best of it. And he found woodworking and he made so much stuff that's in my house. Like he would always just say, what do you want? What do you need? And he volunteered at his church and it just turned out to be a great thing because he passed away at 73. So I'm so thankful that the Lord orchestrated it that way, that he did have 8 years not working, you know, I mean, still working. He might not have even lived that long, you know? So I think sometimes you get put into a situation and then you discover like what you want to do and what your purpose is.
Yeah. Yeah. I've really seen that probably for the first couple of years, my dad took like these little jobs just to have a reason to, you know, feel like he had a job. But now they've fully embraced traveling and doing fun things. And he doesn't need any of those little jobs anymore to like feel like he has a purpose. But I think maybe it's just like a cautionary tale that we do, like you said, need to think about what will we be doing in our later years that is purposeful and meaningful to us. It doesn't have to bring in an income, but it's something that we're excited about or gets us out of bed or makes us happy. Well, one of the things in the book, if you've been reading along with us, French Women Don't Get Facelifts, is she has this little life expectancy calculator on page 202. And Julie and I didn't do that, but Mindy, you did. So why don't you tell us what you found out?
I did a quick little Google search of a free life expectancy calculator. Okay. And then I was just more interested, what's it going to ask? Because I wanted to have that information to tell you guys. So it's asking for weight, what your diet is, what your blood pressure, cholesterol, how often you exercise, your family history, smoking, alcohol consumption, ethnicity, how often you eat fruits and vegetables. And so it had these just random things. Now there was a lot of chatter on Google about what the best life expectancy calculator was. And I think some of those you pay for that service. I'm not sure why, but it said I was going to die at 87. Okay. So I don't know what I didn't answer right, but but what I felt like was missing in the questions, and actually this was a huge glaring hole, I thought, in that life expectancy and the questions that it asked, was more the mental and emotional well-being aspect of it. And this is a good transition to our next chapter. So I wanted to bring it up here because I feel that we all know people that have aged well. And when I say well, those are people that still have a lot of happiness, joy, a peace about the future. They have suffered, but they have come to the other side and chosen to have gratitude versus the people that have suffered and have gotten really, really bitter about life. And so to me, that was a glaring thing about us aging well has so much to do with kind of how you choose to walk through suffering. That was something I thought was just, I'm thankful that will kind of come up about in the next chapter.
Yeah, the next chapter, chapter 12, is called Loving, Laughing, Working. And it does talk about how much of those things do you have in your life? And we can substitute the word purpose for working. So how much love, laughter, and purpose, and that it really does play a big role in longevity. Julie, when you did these questions, you asked us to think about, do you laugh a lot? How often? Do you intentionally try to incorporate laughter? The first thing that came to my mind was, well, podcasting once a week, we usually get some laughs in while we're recording.
Yeah.
But I was trying to think of other ways that I incorporate laughter. I do feel like I can laugh at things easily. I don't know if I specifically think about how to incorporate it.
I guess I try to, and she talked about this too, like she talked about forwarding a joke or whatever. And we do that in our kind of our family chat, or just funny videos. Like if I need a lift, I love to just watch Nate Bargatze's SNL skit where he plays George Washington. Like I could watch that over and over and laugh my head off. Or Boomer Mom. I just watch her because I feel like I'm laughing at myself when I watch her, and that's fun. So I just have to find intentional ways to laugh, because she said laughter is excellent medicine, and that's actually scriptural. I mean, it says it does your heart good. But I really had to laugh thinking about a friend, and she's a listener. So I'm gonna tell what she does. There's a thing called laughter yoga. Have you heard of it?
No.
So we were out to dinner one night, and she was like, "Oh, okay, I want to show you guys something." And she was really excited about it. And it was so embarrassing because what it does is it helps you to laugh when there's nothing funny to laugh at. Like you don't have to have a comedian on hand or a joke or whatever, but it's like the body movement of laughing and how much air you take in and all of like the physical components of laughing. It mimics that even when you don't think something is funny.
Interesting.
Wow.
And she said she has to shut her computer down when her husband walks in because she looks so ridiculous, because you do this exaggerated like, ha, 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 like that. And and like moving your shoulders and everything, like you are when you're laughing. So I looked it up, and it's like a big thing. There's laughter yoga all over.
Interesting.
Yeah. I have never heard of that. I'm so glad you shared that. I can't wait to look at videos of this.
Yeah.
And I'm already imagining if my kids saw me do this, they would be laughing.
That would make
for
them
years
laugh.
to come.
Yes, it made me laugh just watching these people do it, or thinking about, you'd have to go in your closet, I think.
Yes. So I feel like there was a point in time when my kids were little and life felt really hard and stressful, that I just thought, man, my kids they're only telling me the bad things that happen in school. It feels like life is pretty like stressful and hard. And I thought, why does it feel so hard? And so at that time, I just felt like we needed to have more fun. Things needed to get a little lighter around the house. And so I started incorporating even just playing loud music and a fun upbeat song and things like that. And just kind of loosening my hold on even just the control of the schedule and all the things that had to be done. Like I thought, okay, I don't want this for my family. I don't want days to be stressful. I don't want to be stressed. And so incorporating more fun into the house really kind of changed how our family navigated life. And I think that one of the other things that I would pinpoint with having fun is it really kind of comes along with not being so easily offended. And I say that because sometimes we can just really have a hard view of life and become offended at so many things that we can't laugh at ourselves or be self-aware or be willing to look like a dork or be willing to make mistakes and laugh about it and call it out and be okay with it. So I think that just maybe choosing to not be so easily offended, choosing to laugh at yourself is really the catalyst to help. So if you have a lighthearted view of yourself, then your family will have a lighthearted view, hopefully, of themselves. And then you you laugh. You laugh about things that you do because we're going to make mistakes. We're going to flounder. We're going to, slip up. But if we can choose to see that as funny,
right,
that gives you a lot of laughter right there.
Well, the author talks about 4 anchors in life that keep us firm, balanced, and sheltered. Good health, good relationships or community, work or purpose, and then hobbies, time for yourself. When you looked at these, good health, good relationships, work, hobbies, do you feel like you're lacking in any of these, or do you find any of them to be harder to maintain than others? If I was going to say that I find some to be lacking, it would maybe be work or purpose. I don't know that I necessarily feel that, but my whole adult life, I always feel like other people feel that way when they look at me. So I don't know why I have such a self-conscious view about that. Like they might be thinking, what is her work or purpose? But I don't necessarily feel it. I just more am like, what would I put down on a piece of paper for that? So I don't know.
Yeah, that was mine too, is I really am struggling. I feel like I'm really missing that part because, when I was raising my kids, I knew what it was. I homeschooled, I ran our house, managed the home, did all of that. And that all seemed very, very, very meaningful. And now it just doesn't, and I tried to think about, why that is true, because a home is still, like John has provided this home, it still needs to be maintained. It's still an important thing to do. But I just see it differently now. So that I feel like I need to find a purpose outside of that.
Okay.
And I've been looking for a while, even before John got sick. So, but now it just seems even more crucial.
Yes.
Yeah.
I immediately thought back to the numerous amount of conversations we've had about purpose in different stages of life. And that we're all kind of looking, for that meaningful work. It feels so elusive, yet we are all doing meaningful work. It's just really hard to write down what we do, like on a piece of paper and have like bullet points. Like, this is what I'm accomplishing, because for me, it's more nuanced. I feel that my purpose is to make my entire family and anybody that I know and interact with live better. Like I want people to be better for having been with me. And I've noticed this more and more the older I get, that's my prayers have really changed, trying to have an outward view of what God is doing in others' lives. And I'm okay if it's not me, but if I can somehow encourage, add joy, be a listening ear, have a hug ready, just if those are really hard to pinpoint. But so I do feel that meaningful work is happening. It's just really hard to write that down. The other thing is we still feel, only because we've moved, this building community. This is something that we are continued to be purposeful about because we've been here 3.5 years. And so we have a lot of longer relationships of people that we don't live near anymore, but also these newer relationships in the last 3.5 years that we're still cultivating. We're very, very intentional and purposeful because it's so crucial to live in community with other believers because we're believers. And so that kind of, I know we're going to talk about that more, but that community aspect is also just real crucial in our conversations.
Yeah, and she talks about that, like staying connected and renewing friendships and maintaining, but also developing new ones.
Right.
And that's kind of a hard balance, like, because it just feels like a lot sometimes.
Yeah. That's why I have friends that we may not talk for a year, and then we'll talk and just hit it off. And we're like, okay, I got to go back to the dailiness and the things that we have to do. And those are the kind of friendships that last for me, though.
Yeah.
Some of those.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, she talks about having like-minded friends, and she says sometimes they're more valuable than family. Julie, what did she mean by that?
Yeah, she said, in building networks of friends, it is worth noting that sometimes like-minded and aged friends are even more valuable in dealing with one's advanced years than family, at least in some cases. And I would agree. I'm not saying that friends are better than family, but they just maybe fill a different need, I just think it's good to get together with people that understand what it's like to be in their 50s and have grown children and grandchildren and all of that. They have more empathy, more compassion. They get you better, But at the same time, she said, I like to keep younger people in my circle. And I agree with that too. It keeps you thinking about things that are more current and keeps you a little more future minded. So I think that's good.
I think, Mindy, you mentioned your adult children, like they keep me in the culture. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
So my oldest is 28 and my youngest two are 20. And it's so funny because now sometimes my 28-year-old will say that she doesn't feel as with it as her 20-year-old sisters. And because I'll ask her about something, she's like, Mom, I am so far out of that. You're going to have to ask Lydia and Lauren. It's just so funny because even that short span of 8 years, there's actually a big difference between people that are raising 3 kids and people that are in college. And so, it's good to have those wide variety of stages because then you stay up on things that I might not even know about.
Yeah, that makes me laugh too, is when we're together as a family and I hear what they're talking about and
yes.
And I'm like, what is that? Explain this to me. So yeah, that's funny.
Oh my goodness.
To be out of the loop and be informed.
True. Truly. I do feel like when talking about the importance of friends versus just your family, I know I'm so thankful to have the friends that are in my life because it just makes life lighter, easier, to be able to relate with someone that's in your same stage. I know I'm having a lot of perimenopausal conversations with my friends and I appreciate that. That's something I would say Bryce is my best friend, but he can never relate with this. Right. And so, obviously I talk to him, but at the same time, my friends and I are talking and we're talking about, different medicines and creams and, your sleep habits and your exercise. And so there's just things that people in your stage and like-minded friends can really help you with the dailiness of life and having kind of a lighter view of it. Like, oh, I'm not alone. And I think that for me, that's what I need. I'm not alone. This is normal. It's going to be okay. And then I certainly appreciate, I've mentioned before how thankful I am to have older women that I have constantly in my life that come to my exercise classes and that I rub shoulders with because they are giving me hope for the future, for the life I want to live when I'm that age. And then I'm so thankful for the younger generation because I kind of tried to pinpoint, do they offer? Well, hello, technology's changing all, and I definitely need the younger generation to help me with technology. Fashion, things that are, that look good, new trends. I love that kind of stuff. And even slang, like the vernacular and the way people talk changes throughout the years. And, go read Margaret Mitchell's Gone with the Wind and try to understand it. And then talk to a teenager and try to understand them. So trying to keep up with how people talk and, different new phrases, it's a constant. And I definitely feel old.
You definitely need all ages or you become very insular and you just, I don't know. I don't even think you're as interesting to talk to or as interesting. You don't even have as interesting conversations if you're just only in your very immediate stage all the time.
Right.
All right. Well, she mentions religion at the end of this chapter as part of something that can give us longevity. And she says that a spiritual life can be an important anchor. And in the chapter, it kind of sounds like an afterthought, but I think that the way that we feel at Midlife Matters is that it's more of a constant in your life. And so how do you feel like spiritual things are an anchor and also will help you with longevity? So one of the things I was thinking of was that, of course, I want to live to be 100 or longer if I'm healthy and mentally aware. Like, of course, I want to see my grandchildren have children. And even one of my grandmothers lived to see her great-grandchild have a child. Like, that sounds awesome. Like, generations, getting to see that, getting to participate. but I don't know if that's how my life will go. I mean, it matters that we try to stay healthy and we try to do, all that we can do, but we don't know what life circumstances are going to come into our life. And we don't know how many days the Lord has numbered for us. And so, of course, I pray that there are many and I pray that they're healthy. But I think for me, how spirituality plays into longevity is just that I know that whether there's few or many, that God needs to be involved in all of them. No matter how many days there are left, whether it's a few or many, there's still just a blip compared to how many I'll have in eternity.
Yeah, I agree. I think however long I live, I have to trust God with every day of my life and accepting what he has for me, and it's himself. More than anything, more than anything I could want on this earth, it has to be more of him is what I'm learning. I love something that she said at the end, because I really couldn't tell what her religious belief was, but she says, what is more positive than a religious belief in life after death? And I said, amen. I wrote that in the comment. Like, I mean, without that, how would I don't know how people make it through anything, without that promise and assurance of life after death with the Lord.
I definitely feel that the older I get, the more I realize how much I don't know and how much I'm really not in control. Like it's just becoming more aware of that. It's always been that way. I'm just more aware of it. And so I feel that I can almost summarize my relationship with the Lord in two statements. And that's that God loves me and I'm not in control, but he is. And one of the things I've had conversations with my adult children that are having some deeper thoughts, about life, and becoming more aware of different ways that people can suffer in life, because we all know that suffering will come. It's just, I said, if I could offer you one piece of wisdom, it's just surrender faster. Surrender to the Lord, to his mercy, because his character is good and kind. He will offer provision, protection. He gives us peace when we lay all of our anxieties and fears in him. He offers joy. It said, the joy of the Lord is my strength. And I truly believe that. And so to be able to have no fear because you trust the Lord so much, it's not that things won't happen. It's just realizing that the Lord can help you through anything he allows in your life. And so I want to be able to constantly just trust him with my circumstances and know that he loves me and that he can bring good.
Another thing that she brought up in that section was, and this has been true for me, is she said, people who belong to religious groups are generally caring people and will help to look after others in need. And I thought that is really true. Like it's a community that just seems to come around when they're suffering and they're there. And not that other people aren't, that's not true, but in general, the church family is just a really caring family.
All right, you guys. Well, these two chapters, they were a little maudlin, but also encouraging at the same time.
Right.
We still have a little bit more of this book to do. I think it's going to kind of be a nice recap of the things that we've already talked about. I think we probably only have about one more episode on French Women Don't Get Facelifts. But listeners, we would love to have you come and find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. But come and find us. Tell us what you think of these episodes, what you think of the book, what you think about aging, how long you'd like to live. We'd like to hear any and all of it. So,
Right.
But before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
I am a fan of a show on Prime, and this is actually a perfect example that encapsulates what we've just talked about throughout this entire episode. My family is experiencing and walking through the final days of my grandfather's life on Earth. And my parents are currently staying with us to be closer to him. And the days are really hard for my parents. Well, we ended up landing on this show on Prime. And I know this seems really silly with this heavy, deep subject, but we started watching A Person of Interest on Prime. And it's just kind of a, like a white knight, that helps people. And it's a really fascinating show. It's very smartly done. There's a lot of seasons, Marie, so you can start it now because it's old enough that there's a lot of seasons out there.
Is it reality?
No.
Or is it, no. Okay.
No. Jim Caviezel is the main character. And so basically he's given he's working with another man, and they're trying to get people into a safe position, keep them alive. It's really hard to explain, but it's called Person of Interest. Mm-hmm. And this particular show it's light enough, but interesting enough that after the long days that my parents are having with helping my grandfather and grandmother, they come back to our house and we'll watch an episode.
Nice.
And this has just given our family something very lighthearted, easy to watch. It's not too heavy. It's not too gory. There's not a lot of language. And it's just interesting enough that for the weary, it's just given us something kind of lighter at night. So we've fallen into this routine. So I'm just even thankful for this TV show, that we're watching streaming every night on Prime.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's good, Mindy. I'll have to check that one out. All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
Okay, I'm a fan of a YouTube channel, which I'm not a YouTuber. I was at my daughter's house and I was keeping one of my grandchildren in the morning while she worked. And during nap time, I turned on her TV and I thought I was on YouTube TV, but I was just on regular YouTube. And so I could see the things she was subscribed to. So I clicked on this one. Her name is Carolyn Winkler. I think I watched 4 or 5 videos.
Really?
And she apparently had one video go viral and just became really famous. So she has 121 videos now, and she lives in Washington, D.C. I think she might have been a comedian. She is a designer, and her videos were she's just so relatable. Like the first one I watched was, "This is why your room feels off." And so she'll show you how to fix something. And it's not like there's this one fix for everything. It's just she uses kind of elements of design and says, "See, doesn't this look better?" She did a total makeover of her sister's apartment without buying anything new. It was amazing.
Oh.
She did a balcony makeover on her boyfriend's balcony. I mean, just very practical, good ideas. Now that she's gotten a little more famous, she does throw in some exercise and diet stuff. I didn't watch any of that. Or about an outfit I wear in a week or something like that. I just stuck to the home things, but she is just really, really good. I highly recommend her.
Definitely check that out.
Yeah. Caroline Winkler.
Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this week I'm a fan of a book called Emily Alone. It's by Stuart Onan. And I can't say read this book because it's so awesome, but it really fits with this topic. It's about an older woman and her life, which sounds like boring, but yet not. It's very bittersweet. It says it's a bittersweet vision of love, family, and aging from best-selling author Stuart Onan. And I love to read and watch bittersweet things. I don't know why I'm always attracted to that. So basically, she's this older woman living in Pittsburgh, and it's about her life. She's in her 80s. Her sister-in-law's in her 80s. They're kind of companions together going through life. Her children don't visit as often as she would like. She's frustrated with the construction on her street. She gave up driving for a while, but now she feels like maybe she could drive, so she gets a smaller, newer car. Nothing super life changing, but it's just such a good portrayal of probably what older life is for a lot of people that I found it interesting. So, anyways.
That does sound like you, Marie.
So if you've ever enjoyed any of my other book picks, you might like Emily Alone if you're just wanting to get inside the head of somebody who's older.
Oh, nice. Yes.
All right, you guys. Well, this was an enjoyable episode once we got going on it. And I really do think that there is a lot here, and I appreciate talking about it with you guys.
Yeah, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, some hard topics, but we found a way to laugh. So that was good.
That's true. We did not break our streak of laughing during every episode.
Right.
We'll talk and laugh with you next week.
All right.
Oh, sounds great.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.